Welcome to episode 16 of the Matlock podcast, the Johnson case.
In this week's episode, Olympia helps out an old friend by taking on a case for a juror who helped convict a man of murder 2 decades earlier, but has been haunted by what she considers a miscarriage of justice ever since. Using her treatment from the jury foreman to re-examine the murder case, Olympia and the team try to find a way to free the innocent man, but will the district attorney's office step up to help? Or are they happy to keep the win on their scorecard?
I was hoping you'd have one of those Hail Mary epiphanies, like the night you figured out the meaning of life.
Okay, there were other substances involved, and I believe my answer was Gouda and Crystal.
Evening, Ian, how are you?
I'm not too bad. Gerry, have you had any Hail Mary epiphanies whilst watching this episode?
No, but I have figured out the meaning of life.
Which is?
I'm not going to tell you, obviously.
Okay.
Keep that to myself.
Fair enough. Tune in next week for
maybe
the big reveal.
If you are good. Leave it in the likes in the comments. If you want me to reveal the meaning of life, where can people get in touch?
They can get in touch at Colombo Podcast on all the major social networks and X as well. They can get show notes at colombopodcast.com. And if you want to hear next week's episode, the penultimate episode 1 week early, in fact, right now, head over to our YouTube channel, Colombo Podcast Productions, where you will find it already.
You know me, Ian. I'm not one for childish innuendo, cheap humour.
No, never. Never heard it.
I understand that in the States, a Johnson is another word for your male member.
You think that's what they're trying to get at here?
No, I don't think so at all, but I just thought it was funny.
Oh, you just think the word's funny?
Yeah, the Johnson case. In the UK, that would be the cock case.
Let's cock on.
No, I'm not having that. No, you're not giving me that one. Let's crack on.
Our recap this week begins differently from the last few by reminding us of Madeline's chauffeur waiting for her to get off the bus, before going back to the overarching mission. Also the pen recorder, Madeline's implication of Julian, Olympia and Julian's afternoon in the court cells, Olympia winning the slammed case, Madeline's distress at Olympia becoming her main suspect, the Redditor, and last week's revelation of their identity.
We've said this before, and it's reaching new peaks in terms of despicable behaviour from Madeline.
And we're so close to the finish, they're going to have to go some to justify or wrap up any of this in a positive way.
From what I can see, there are a number of relationships here who, no matter what the outcome, who's guilty and who's innocent, are irreparably damaged. The trust has gone.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely the case. It would be very difficult for reconciliation to happen. So some people are going to have to either leave or be antagonistic in the future.
Also, as I was taking my notes last week, I did forget, it's annoying me this week, because we saw Olympia ask a guard at the court if she could have a word or ask a question.
Yes.
And I meant to say we never found out what that was for, but we do find out this week.
We do. So now you just sound like you've watched this week's episode and been reminded of it.
Yeah, I'm just...
You get no credit.
No credit. I should have brought it up. If I wanted to, Billy Big Mouth, yeah.
That's
if
it.
you get something to say it at the time.
Or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, fair enough. Where do we begin this week?
We pick up immediately from the end of last week's episode at the park.
We have very dramatic driving music as we catch up with the anxious Belvin, as you see in the park, as she hears a phone vibrate and finds it taped to the bottom of the bench.
This scene sets the scene for the rest of the episode. They've decided they're going to treat Mrs. Belvin as an antagonist or some kind of opponent for the duration of this discussion.
Someone deserving of the behaviour that's doled out to her, and she certainly is not.
No, she's trying to help and they're treating her like a villain.
Yeah. Madeline effectively ghost faces her with a voice disguiser and asks if she looked at the information that she sent her.
And what her favourite scary movie is. Mrs. Belvin says that the timeline is wrong.
Yeah, well, okay, so Madeline says, we know that the missing documents were part of a marketing study, but once the timeline that they've put together confirmed, and
Yes, to make sure it definitely was Olympia before they sent, because we saw last week she was packing this stuff all up to send to the New York Times.
yeah. Although before she tells them that the timeline is wrong, she refuses to discuss anything until she knows who she's talking to. Quite rightly,
Yeah.
I think. This is what we have to, I think,
Yeah, because as far as she knows, this could be someone trying to get her into trouble.
More than that, more serious than that, I think. She's putting her job and potentially her life on the line. This could be someone wanting to silence her. We're talking about big pharma, where there are potentially hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, and even within Jacobs and Moore, certainly tens of millions of dollars in terms of fees.
You can't imagine that Senior would think twice about sacking Mrs. Belvin.
Or having someone bump her off. Maybe not Senior, but I can see big pharma wanting...
the Wrexa Bros that we saw previously.
Yeah. And you only have to look in terms of real life whistleblowers, how they're treated.
Absolutely. Ostracised, penalised.
Accused of all sorts of stuff, whether it be true or not. Their lives are turned upside down. So certainly imprisonment. Yeah, so coming forward in this type of climate, you can understand why you should be apprehensive and fearful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that Madeline really considers that.
She doesn't know. So at this point, Madeline's behaviour becomes the most disgusting it has been so far, and she's been pretty disgusting a lot of times. What does she do? Or what does she say first of all? What's her accusation?
So she pins all the deaths of everyone since this happened of opioids on Belvin.
Yeah, for not coming forward 14 years earlier. That's utter scumbag behaviour. Season 2 should be Olympia, Shay and the twosome working together with Madeline Kingston in a prison cell.
Yes, getting beaten.
Yes, on a daily basis.
She's not a nice lady.
She's a psychopath.
And Betsy's already pointed this out.
Yeah, she unhinged anyway. And you could blame that on what's happened to her daughter.
It could be grief, but it's still not justifying what she's done.
It's not at all. So she again asks about this timeline, and Belvin tells her, as you say, it's wrong, but refuses to say anything else, and then hangs up and walks off with the phone. I think Belvin should have left the phone.
Or put it in the bin, yeah. So I'm not interested in this.
So we're back in the war room, where a frustrated Madeline restores Julian and Senior to the suspect board as she lies to Edwin about Belvin being smug.
I couldn't believe it. I've got this in inverted commas here. How can she say she was smug? And she wanted to assault her.
Yes, she was absolutely terrified, yes. She says she wanted to throttle it out of her, the truth that is, or what she thinks is the truth. This is nonsense. You are scaring an elderly woman who is trying to help, who's put herself in a very vulnerable position.
Yep.
Doesn't have to do this, has no responsibility, did not do anything wrong, has obviously been worried, sick about the whole situation for a number of years, and she is doing the right thing as far as Belvin thinks, and you are, she was acting smug. Edwin is also deplorable in this episode, yes. But perhaps some of that is influenced by Madeline's lies.
Well, the two of them start coming with this maniacal laughing all the time now.
I think I've used the word cackle in a moment, but it's disgusting. The pair of them, Alfie should be staying with Bitsy, because both of them, including Edwin will be in prison as well.
They've lost touch with real life.
Yeah.
They're so obsessed with their own stupid little quest that they have no contact anymore with what a normal thought process is.
And that is the thing. I do not now, and maybe the show wants this or is quite happy for the audience to feel this way, but I do not want Madeline to have this anyway sort of happy. Her behaviour does not warrant it for her to have this all wrapped up. I do not care now. Again, from what we've seen in terms of Wrexa as well, I don't think they've done that much wrong.
Well, I still don't see the connection between what we think this document is, or what she thinks this document is, and the assertion that it would have taken opioids off the market 10 years earlier and saved lives.
Just to clarify, I'll reiterate what I think it was last week we found out. There was a marketing document which revealed that by telling people what not to do with drugs, it was effectively a how-to for drug addicts. And they found out about this. They changed the labelling, but then hid this discovery. They've done nothing wrong, or certainly nothing deliberately wrong.
Yeah, so the only thing they've hidden is the reasoning behind the decision.
Yeah.
They found out that this is causing people to take the drugs in a way that gets them more high, more quickly. And they changed it.
Yeah.
They made it better.
Because what you could blame is, okay, there is an opioid problem, and if they were, like Slammed, for example, aggressively marketing towards these users, you could say...
Or if it had been the other way around, if they found that if we say you crush it, they will take more of it, and they then made that change, they introduced this, that would have been sensible.
But what we know right now is, or from the information we have, Matlock, Madeline Kingston is the criminal here, is the only person doing something.
Her and Edwin.
And
Alfie.
And Alfie, okay. And Bitsy. She knows what's going on as well. Or does she?
She knows what's going on. I don't think she's done anything.
Well, yeah, but if you're not, I don't know, you're not a black, I don't know. Anyhow, I do not want her to have a happy end. I want her to be in prison.
Well, I'm interested to see how they try to redeem her from this position, because she is in a dark place.
They cannot. What she's doing to Belvin right now, no matter what the outcome, how she's treated Belvin, and it's going
to get worse.
Well, it's going to get worse, is inexcusable.
It's horrific, is the only word for it, I think.
Anyway.
Yeah. They raised the possibility here that she might have been bluffing. Why would she have been bluffing? It doesn't make any sense. What is she bluffing about?
Exactly what I've noted here. Why would she? What does she have to gain from this?
It's because they're so stuck in their own paranoid minds that they think, oh, well, everyone's working against us. It doesn't make any logical sense.
Nope. And Madeline won't let the thought of being wrong about Olympia enter her mind. She is obsessed and irrational. Well, we know that. But that's just...
And her conclusion here is it's time to get even nastier with Belvin.
And as the title is displayed, the maniac claims that the carrot didn't work in finding out the truth from Belvin, so they will now use the stick. WTF?
What carrot?
This is outrageous.
The only carrot they've got, they're trying to shove it up her backside.
Yes. Exactly. They've scared her. They've threatened her. They've said, come here. What carrot? Exactly.
It's threat.
Yeah.
Constant threat. And there's, Edwin purrs at this point.
Yes. Do you believe, and I think maybe we should, I think maybe we should be thinking like this, because it is a fairly gritty, well-written show, and it's not, it's not cosy. So do you think that the writers and the show itself wants us to be aghast at her behaviour here and not be Team Matlock?
We should say that all the way through this, the things that we have expressed as concerns, the show has reflected.
It's
later on.
Identified, and
So I think it would be wrong of us to assume that they've made a mess of this and this is not intentional. This must be what they want us to think. And there must be something coming that we haven't thought of or that we don't expect. And hopefully it's not something rubbish. Hopefully it's something clever.
Yeah, well, we will find out. We next see her place a parcel in her bag in the elevator. Why only then? Why didn't she put it in her bag when she left the house? Anyhow, it doesn't matter. As a buzzing, a hyper Olympia enters and invites her to join the rest of the team in celebratory drinks that night because of the Slammed case.
Yeah, she declines, saying that she's got some schoolwork to help Alfie with, and Olympia then, in a sort of very weird, needy and inauthentic way, asks her to confirm...
Inauthentic or unauthentic?
Either way.
Okay.
She asks Madeline to confirm that they are good, and then says they couldn't have got through the Slammed case without her help, and they need her there, or she needs her there for when she makes partner. And Madeline at this point can't even fake enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's what I've got here. She's obviously struggling with the positive attitude towards her.
Yeah. She tries to play along, but it's not her normal way.
And things are also odd for Olympia as she enters the main office and becomes more and more uneasy as she's met with stares rather than backslapping and praise that she was perhaps expecting after the victory. She eventually ends up beside a very serious-looking Elijah who tells her they need to talk.
Over in the U3 office, Billy wants Madeline to adjudicate on a disagreement he's having with Sarah.
What's that?
She wants to ask Olympia to allocate her a case of her own, but Billy thinks that she should wait until after Olympia's final presentation to the partner board. Sarah's reasoning is that they've just won the Slammed case, she's in a good mood, it's a great time to ask.
Billy thinks that might jinx it.
Definitely. And talking about it is the way of jinxing it. And then Olympia comes... Oh no, at that point, Madeline then sees the mail trolley going past with her threat to Belvin carried within it. And Sarah's optimism is torpedoed as soon as an upset Olympia comes in.
The partner board are not as impressed with Olympia's performance as she would have thought, as their corporate clients think that she went after one of their own with the Slammed win. I'm struggling to see that. So you win a case and your other clients think, oh no, you shouldn't win cases.
It's not that you shouldn't win cases, it's that the arguments you've made are counter to what they would want the firm to stand up for as its values.
I'm not sure other businesses
it doesn't make
give
a lot of sense.
any thought.
It would
really
make sense if it was the partners themselves were saying this. The clients saying it. Do the clients even follow the other cases?
They wouldn't be. They would. Yeah.
Do they care?
I wouldn't have thought so. Anyway.
Yeah. So yes, this implication is that she is not in favour of corporate greed.
Yeah.
And therefore they don't trust her.
She gets a text and tells them Amina is there and will meet them in the conference room. And Sarah explains who Amina is.
Yeah, after Olympia leaves, she tells Madeline that it's Olympia's previous best friend.
Yeah, the old young you.
She was at law school with Olympia and now works for the Public Defender's Office.
Mm-hmm. So in the conference room, they hug before Amina introduces an Isabel Sanchez who explains that she needs help as 21 years earlier, she made a mistake when on a jury and believes that an innocent man is now in prison. This is another case where Olympia is, as far as I can tell, utterly unqualified in putting someone's liberty at risk. She went from a very corporate case with slammed and technicalities to cold casing sort of murder trials.
People who watch Netflix probably know more about the law in this than Olympia.
Yeah.
Because
maybe
you can't specialise in everything.
Maybe some of our American listeners who know about the legal system, maybe they can contradict us. As far as I'm aware, and certainly in this country, you focus in an area. If you are defending someone in a charge of murder, you want someone who really knows, because you've got to look at precedents and things like that and be aware and who you can reference. And someone who's not got that depth of knowledge is getting more a sort of breadth across a shallow field.
Yeah, do more harm than good.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm flummoxed by it.
And I'm surprised that Olympia has the authority to take on a case like this, given what's been happening.
Yeah. Anyway, the rest of the team join them and we find out more about this particular situation.
Eugene Molina was a doorman charged with murdering one of the building's tenants, Linda Gallo.
And this was 21 years ago.
Prosecution argued Linda lodged a complaint. Gene snapped, used his doorman key to get in, and stabbed her to death. In the 9-minute window, he left his desk to pick up dinner for another tenant.
Must have been some complaint.
It wasn't. That's the thing. She complained about all the doormen. It didn't make sense.
Any eyewitnesses?
An unreliable one, teenager, said the man was 6 feet. Gene's only 5'6". She picked him out of a lineup, but the NYPD was still doing single blinds back then.
DNA?
None of it matched Gene, and the police tested everything. The carpet, magazines, the socks under the couch, the spoon on the floor near the body.
Plus the caviar thing.
What's that?
Well, during the original trial, they show us all these pictures of the crime scene, and there was this trail of caviar from the kitchen to the living room, but the rest of the apartment, spotless. And Linda was one of those ladies with a housekeeper who came every single day.
She could have made the mess herself before she died.
Autopsy said Linda hadn't eaten in hours. She still had her jacket on. She just got home. It doesn't make sense. Jim was so mad, he went to pick up a tenant's dinner, ran upstairs, murdered Linda, had some caviar. In 9 minutes?
That does sound pretty insane. So what happened in deliberation?
Everyone else thought he did it. I brought up the caviar over and over, but nothing.
You must have voted guilty, or else it would have been a hung jury.
Not at first. I said no. I tried to talk, but Dale, the foreman, he told me I was wasting everyone's time. He said I was just dragging this out so I can get a free lunch from the government.
Jeez.
And he kept on screaming at me. And everyone else agreed with him. He took away my chair, so I had to stand. And I caved. And Gene was found guilty. And I have regretted it every day since.
Then why did you wait so long to come forward?
A couple of things. I was wondering if the name there, Gallo, was a reference or a nod to My Cousin Vinny.
It could be.
You don't know why, Buck, you've not watched it. Also...
Do we need to explain what a single blind lineup is?
Nah.
People know.
Maybe. Doesn't matter.
Don't care.
Don't care. If you go for it if you want to. If you think we've got time.
Well, I think it's relevant because you need to understand why that would discredit the identification. Single blind is when the officer knows which one is the guilty person and can lead to unintentional cues and things like that. I mean, it's more likely that they get picked out.
Okay.
I take it that then wasn't the point you were going to make.
No, can't remember now.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So the table...
Billy's reaction was too much.
Well, I think he's shocked.
Oh, free lunch? Oh my goodness, how dare he suggest you want a free lunch?
Oh, no, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't something worth saying, actually, but it reminds me of, the accusation reminds me of the Pauly Shore movie Jury Duty, where he just tries to extend a jury trial because he's nowhere to live.
Right. Have you seen the series Jury Duty on Amazon or Freevee?
No, you said it's good, but we're going to move on because we're running really long here.
Are we? It's only 25 minutes so far.
Yeah,
we're almost at the second clip. No.
The table is surprised by this harshness we heard there from Madeline. She apologises, claiming that she just wants to understand her thought, what's going on.
This takes me back to the episode with the girl that you hate, her settlement, that was sexually harassed at work, and Madeline didn't get her point of view and was hostile in this way.
It's not that I hate her settlement, I hate the other settlements in comparison to that one.
Okay. Isabel at this point explains she assumed that Jean would win an appeal, and that's why she didn't bring it up any sooner, and waited 20 years until all these appeals failed before she said anything.
Yeah, but again, it's not really her responsibility.
Well, no.
She made herself know everyone else. So everyone else is just as guilty. If she was in the jury room...
Yeah, the rest of them don't care because they think he is guilty.
Yeah,
she's just got this guilt she wants off her shoulders.
Yes, but she's had her voice heard.
Yep.
And they have heard this evidence and done nothing about it. So
this must happen a lot, though. There must be lots of Jewish where folk aren't really sure and they still said guilty.
I've got massive issues with this. If she had known something more than this, but the whole caviar is very Columbo. It's the type of thing that starts off a thread in Columbo. Mm-hmm. Like he'll think, that's not right, and then he'll collect more evidence and then be able to prove it. But she is just now assumed because of this caviar that he's innocent, and I think that's very, very weak. And I wouldn't be having sleepless nights about that, to be honest.
No, the whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Amina says that she doesn't have the resources in her office to help with this, but she feels like it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think they've stepped outside to have this chat in private because Olympia is concerned. She knows nothing about the case or criminal defence
or law of this area.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, Amina, as we heard at the top of the podcast, is hoping for some sort of Hail Mary from her.
Yeah, she assumes that because Olympia's just won this big case with Slammed, that she'll have some credit in the bank at the firm and be able to cash that in by using some resources for
a reasonable assumption, I think.
Olympia doesn't correct her.
No, and I think she appeals to her better nature as well, doing something for the good guys, the little people.
She agrees that she will at least speak to Jean, but has a favour to ask in return.
Uh-huh.
We don't know yet what it will be, but we will find out.
Madeline and Olympia meet with Mean Jean in the prison.
Not that mean.
No, he's not that mean, really is. Well, he's a killer at this point, so he's pretty mean.
Yeah.
But he is not as enthusiastic or helpful as what you might expect from someone in his position. And Madeline understands why.
Yeah, he doesn't dare to hope. Anyway, Jean agrees with Madeline's read and says he's made himself sick with hope during his appeal and has had to stop because otherwise he'll just... Yeah.
However, they do come to an agreement. He will let them deal with the hope, and he can continue with his destiny that he's come to accept.
Yeah, and he'll answer their questions.
So he tells them that Linda, the victim, complained about him forgetting to bring up her dry cleaning butt. He felt bad for her as she was rich and lonely, and this is the type. She was always moaning, just sort of quite curmudgeonly. I think maybe this is a way of getting some sort of attention.
Yeah. And subsequent to their disagreement, he had apologised after she'd held a dinner party, and he thought things were fine. She left for the Hamptons, and he never saw her again. Although apparently she had come home early.
Yeah, he went out to get dinner for the person in apartment 3A. Didn't know Linda had returned until he heard that she was dead and he was being charged for the murder.
Why does him going out for dinner? I suppose that means he didn't see her coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also maybe he wasn't accounted for then, so if he's
That's why he's got no alibi.
Yes. Okay. He's not at his desk or his station.
Understood. Back in the office, Olympia is convinced that Jean didn't do it.
I'm not sure why. I mean, just because he was quite convincing.
Yeah, well, and also the juror.
Yeah, but she'd already heard that.
Yeah, the combination is why she's convinced. But she wants to take the case, and I've put in notes, is this even their area of expertise?
It's not, and worse than that, she has no strategy in mind as his appeals have all been used. This is, if you were doing this, you would have to have a real numerous years of experience in finding tiny loopholes and a complete sort of back catalogue.
And even though, if you watch any of the high-profile wrongful accusation cases that you see or hear about in the media, these people have specialist lawyers and they still can't get the people out of prison.
Yeah.
Anyway, Olympia's secretary, they're using the Alfie budget for this week, obviously, because she appears a couple of times. She comes in to say that Isabel has called, and Olympia says she'll have to give her a call back as soon as she comes up with some kind of idea.
Yeah, Madeline again fails to hide her callous side when she snaps at Billy when he suggests that Isabel has been, living with her guilt and it must have been terrible. What did she say?
She says it was worse for Jean, and Isabel at least has had a life. She's had her Christmases and her birthdays and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but just the way that Madeline is speaking to people here is
hostile and weird. Yeah, but Billy's overreacting as well. He's saying, she's had this traumatic experience that nobody should have had to go through. So
yeah,
is that not just what happens in...
It's also a bit naive for lawyers to be being so emotional about this.
Yeah.
You should be aware this is how the system works.
Yeah, sometimes people don't get listened to if they're not assertive. Yeah. They kind of make it out later that it's because she's a minority and a woman and they don't want to take her view. It's like... I'm pretty sure anyone who's not assertive would have their views overridden.
I've got a note about that as well, because I think Olympia plays up on that at one point, and I don't think that's the type of thing that should be. Maybe a last resort, but I think undermines Olympia's abilities. Anyway, Sarah admits, however, that she does like this sort of cold attitude from Madeline.
Yeah, it's normally her calling card, but she likes it on Madeline.
And at this point, Olympia has a bit of a light bulb moment.
Well, given what Billy says about this traumatic experience, it occurs to her that she could raise a case against the foreman for the intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Yeah.
I don't even like this idea. I don't like the way it plays out in the episode.
Yeah.
It's tenuous for me.
At her desk, the parcel is delivered to Mrs. Belvin, who tentatively opens it and is correct to be worried, as it contains what?
Well, first of all, a dog biscuit and then a note, the contents of which I've written down in full.
Go for it.
This is all in capitals as well. I will be calling tomorrow at 3 p.m. You will pick up, or I will have to take matters further into my own hands. And yes, I am talking about Barry Manilow.
That's quite funny, actually. But this is horrific behaviour.
Well, it's tailored to upset Belvin as much as possible because it's targeting the thing that she cares about most in the world.
We see this. There's obviously a parallel between the case and Madeline, as there often is. So she is deliberately committing an intentional emotional threat here.
Yes,
towards Mrs. Belvin,
intentionally inflicting emotional distress. Yeah. Yes, I've written this as despicable, and that Belvin is rightly distressed. And are we meant to think this is acceptable?
I don't think we are meant to think that. I think the writing's too strong.
Not meant to think that.
Yeah. In the court, Olympia is arguing with Dales, that's the foreman, with his outraged attorney about what legal actions can be taken against a juror.
It's an annoyingly informal conversation, and I don't think the judge should allow it to go like this.
Okay. Olympia insists that harassment is not acceptable in the jury room, and while the defence accepts that things can get heated, she doesn't buy into the emotional distress, but then slips a little by claiming Isabel was keeping the other jurors from their families over a few pieces of caviar. When I say slip, I mean I think her nature slips there. It's like she's also taking the assuming that Isabel would be...
the same as Madeline.
Yeah.
They're just dismissive of her concerns.
But then she makes a big mistake. She falls into Olympia's trap.
Which is not a good trap and I don't like. But
okay, tell me.
She says that if anything, she was inflicting this emotional distress on him.
Olympia says, okay, I agree. The only way to find out who is right or wrong is for my team to be allowed to look into the evidence.
This doesn't make sense because surely if they both genuinely believe they're correct, it doesn't matter who's factually correct.
Exactly. So the judge agrees that she's 48 hours if she can bring up something that would, I know, she can provide or produce some evidence that would cast doubt upon the certainty of the verdict.
This is outrageous as well. So this is implying that if they can show that he wasn't guilty, then anyone in the jury who thought he was is objectively wrong and should be punished.
Also, she's put Isabel on the line for this.
Yes.
Because what she's saying is that if they can't do that, then he can sue her.
Well, they'll rule in his favour, yes.
So he will now sue and the judge will say, yeah, that's what we agreed to.
Yep.
It's a ridiculous situation.
Yeah. As Billy sums up back in Olympia's office, where he says they have 2 days to do what all these appeals have failed to do.
Yeah, but Olympia reminds him that they were based on procedures, and this new approach will have to prove that he's innocent. So what the whole trial couldn't do.
Yes. with specialist lawyers
Yeah.
and all the evidence being thoroughly examined.
Over a number of weeks, no doubt, for a murder trial.
Or longer.
Yes. Months, potentially. Outrageous.
All they have to do is prove his innocence beyond a reasonable doubt.
And they're going to start with the eyewitness, who she hopes has had a nagging doubt in the last 20 years since she was 16. What an assumption. Like, can you find her? Is she still alive? Why would you also... She probably forgot about it.
Yeah.
As an eyewitness, yeah, I saw him. Yeah, I think I've now convinced myself that he was 6 foot, or I got it right or wrong. There's no way that she's...
Yeah.
The assumption that she will have been wrong and knew she was wrong at the time, and since then has been worrying about it, is an absurd assumption to make.
Completely. Madeline thinks she's maybe spotted something in the paperwork.
What's that? 3
of the other tenants are marked down as having spoken to the police, but only 2 of them were introduced as witnesses in the trial.
Why is that important?
Well, the third one must have had something else to say that wasn't helpful either, or the exact same thing to say and wasn't needed, but we'll find out.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've got no record of who this tenant is.
No, they just know the flat number.
Yeah, it was owned by a corporation,
apartment
which is now defunct, so they've no link to them. But Madeline decides to call and ask Jean. And at this point, the receptionist, again, earns her salary this episode. She pops in and hands her documents from Amina about the Johnston case.
This sets off alarm bells for Sarah.
Yeah, because especially the way Olympia acts.
Yeah, she won't let Sarah take the file and
tries to act very casual about
them
it.
off, yeah.
Which just makes her look suspicious.
So immediately in the U3 office, Sarah announces that she knows Olympia is lying and there is no Johnston case.
Yeah, she thinks after making this mess with the slammed politics, I suppose, she's now getting close to her bestie at the public defender's office and thinks that she might be about to jump ship and work for them. And then Billy doesn't... She's looking for Billy to say, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, she can't afford for that salary. She won't be able to live on it.
Yeah, exactly. But he says, yeah, that's a strong possibility.
That's really distressing for Sarah, who trusts his opinion. But he says, rather than worry about this, let's prioritise Jean's case.
Yeah, we've now got about 43 hours to get him out of prison.
Madeline then is on the phone to Jean in the prison and asks him about apartment 6C and reassures him that it doesn't matter, it's not going to help, so don't get your hopes up.
He does have some information.
He remembers the name. It's a woman called Cheryl Clausen, but he doesn't know how it's spelled. It's nearly 3 p.m. though, so Madeline has a task to complete.
Yeah, I think she's now in the stairwell or an empty...
It's the room where Shay keeps sneaking up on her. But fortunately they haven't paid Shay to appear in this episode, so she's absolutely fine.
Yeah, so she makes this hopefully threatening call, but is outraged when the stoic Belvin refuses to be intimidated and doesn't pick up. Well done, Mrs. Belvin.
Good work.
That's how you deal with it. That's what I'm saying. You should you should have left the phone, dump the phone, put it in the bin.
I did quite enjoy Madeline phoning Edwin with the voice changer still on.
Yes, he says, you've still got the point. But she's so angered and raged that she doesn't care, doesn't listen. She is there to vent and tell somebody will have to escalate. Very sinister, very sinister.
Grim. This is absolute nightmare stuff. We head down to the document store again.
Yeah, well, she storms around to Belvin's office with a face like thunder, and the psycho then puts on her mask of a sane person, and things seem to fall into her lap.
Maddie, oh thank God.
Oh my. Is this who I think it is?
Yes, it's Barry Manilow.
Oh, cute as a bug's ear. Emily, are you okay? You seem upset.
I am, because I have to get a dental procedure done. Ow!
Oh, no.
So I will be going under anesthesia and unavailable if Barry needs me. I know what great care you took of your cookie.
Are you asking me to take care of Barry Manilow for you?
There are so few people I trust to give him his eye drops correctly.
Emmeline, it would be my honor. Just hand that little guy over to me.
A bit presumptuous, I suppose, from Belvin to be thinking that someone in your work will definitely just take your animal and look after, even if they...
I'm sure she loves dogs.
Yeah, so what?
Yeah.
No,
That was quite an evil laugh at the end from Madeline as well.
She is really sinister.
She's it's like the Joker origin story or something.
No, she's a creepy person. Yeah, and as you say there, we're back at the Kingston mansion where she cackles as she holds Manolo as her sidekick reads a message from Belvin telling her that her dog is now safe and she has no power over her. Or they have no power over her.
I noted that Madeline's like a classic Bond villain here, stroking the dog while maniacally doing evil. Mrs. Belvin tries to turn the tables by making demands now of the interrogators. I don't even know what she would refer to them as, but they have to show up at a bar called Dublin's and reveal themselves in a very specific outfit.
She's got to wear a red hat and also order a stout. Obviously, I don't want to use the word Guinness.
Yeah, clearly.
I've noted here they're they're really enjoying the despair of this poor woman.
Yeah, they're leaning into this sort of wicked characterisation. They laugh maniacally, and Edwin calls her Cruella. Not even seriously, just as a joke, I think.
They're not guilt-ridden, they're not ashamed of what they're doing. Not that I can understand or accept it, but if they did show that remorse or that disgust of their own behaviour,
do this and this, but
then
they're
fair
really
enough.
enjoying it.
But yes.
They're only seeing it from their point of view. The thing is, they know the dog's fine, so they think there's no reason to feel bad. The only thing that Edwin's upset about is that he's got to now look after a dog, which he really didn't want to do.
Oh. Madeline then gets a message about the case and again expresses her incredulity that Isabel took so long in coming forward to right a perceived injustice. And this is again where I've noted this caveat is so weak that this isn't something you should be, it's not necessarily a miscarriage of justice because of one Columbo type clue or piece of evidence, I should say.
She, at this point, sees a parallel between Isabel and Belvin. Mm-hmm. She thinks these two both knew an injustice had been done and sat on it. And it's a really twisted point of view.
Yeah. So, after quickly moving on from the news that she is dog-sitting, Madeline reveals to Billy and Sarah that she has been up all night on social media and has found the contact details for Cheryl in 6C. They are impressed, and Sarah takes credit for showing Madeline how to research like a stalker, and so then tasks her with finding out if Olympia is leaving or not.
Sarah has done something that Madeline is very interested in.
What's that?
She's gone through Olympia's billables, which go back 15 years, and found that there is no Johnson case.
Yes, but Madeline is more interested in the fact that she has billables from 15 years ago.
Yes.
So Sarah, she wants to know if Madeline can find out if Olympia is going to
leave. Yeah. Well, she needs to know this because if Olympia is going, she has a number of other people that she needs to suck up to. She says 3, but Billy says it's a lot more than 3.
I don't understand this shock here. Was it not known to everyone that the loser of the partner race would be leaving?
Yes.
So there was always a chance that she would be heading. So all of a sudden now it's like, Olympia might be going, I need to do something.
Yeah. She might be quitting the partner race. Yeah, no, I don't know. Madeline agrees, thinking this is something she'll never have to deal with, that the next time she's talking to Olympia, she will bring this up. But is shocked when Sarah reveals that she has scheduled a meeting for her with Olympia in 5 minutes' time.
And so Madeline enters Olympia's office to find her down, and frustrated boss wants to brainstorm as they've made little progress and the eyewitness is refusing to change her testimony even though she was off by Jean's description of being 6 foot in height.
Yeah, about 9 inches out. Madeline's trying to fake nonchalance as she comes in here and says that she hopes that this Cheryl Clausen will be a useful lead. But when it comes to the eyewitness, her view is that she will have convinced herself over the intervening time not to feel guilt by assuming that she was correct.
Madeline then causes her to straighten up a bit in her seat when she presents the Sarah and Billy's theory about her leaving.
Yes, and Olympia admits that she has been considering it.
She talks of feeling like she's constantly rowing upstream and how the move would be better than working with Julian, but one of them's going to leave.
Yeah, this is literally 2 episodes ago. She was talking about how she's going to find something else to do and have to make a plan and all this stuff.
Yeah. And that Madeline would be the only thing she would miss.
I suppose, though, the change is that they won slammed, and she thought at that stage, that's us, we're on the inside track, we're definitely going to be good, even though it wasn't realistic. So her change of attitude and the fact that she's maybe been working on this for a period of time is what's surprising to the others.
Yeah. This admission, this sort of personal admission from Olympia seems to rock Madeline a little.
Yeah, she didn't expect it. And Olympia tells her that the only thing she would miss from Jacobson Moore is her. And then recaps their relationship, going back to the time she took the fettuccine to the flat in Queens.
Yes, I think we've got some flashbacks.
Yeah, there's a series of them. We've got the delivery of the pasta and the refusal to come in. Then we've got Madeline becoming her go-to person, even if she almost messed up slammed, and we see her not having the notes that she needed to have for that trial. And then helping her with her marriage, and we see her giving advice about the recording of the pen device and Julian planting it on Olympia's desk.
Even a sociopath like Madeline must be feeling guilty at this point, I think, as Olympia tells her that she turned out to be the complete opposite of what she thought. But she's not saying goodbye just now. She's just thinking about it and asks if she'll keep it just between them.
Yeah, she says she's in a sentimental mood. Back in the U3 office, Sarah gets a message from Madeline saying that Olympia dodged the question.
But Sarah can't discuss the situation any further with Madeline because who turns up?
Cheryl Clausen has arrived for her interview and immediately shows up in her spin outfit.
And asks if they ever do any pro bono work, as her trainer needs a lawyer. And keeping her options open, Sarah tells her that, yeah, they do sometimes, and hands over her own business card.
Yeah, contradicting Billy, who's tried to say no straight away, which is not what you would expect from Billy.
No, they get to the matter in hand, and there is quite the revelation.
Yes, she had told the police about an argument she heard between Linda Gallo and her grandson Roger, but she thinks the police would have dismissed it because she was an emotional woman.
Now, a couple of things about this. Firstly, we should point out it was the day before Linda died, or was murdered.
Yep.
But also, these people are millionaires. You go to the Hamptons, you're a millionaire.
Yep.
You're eating caviar around the house. I am not sure. This isn't a new build with paper-thin walls. I would have thought that building would have extraordinarily, well insulated, and I'm not sure if you could hear arguments
Must have been a really loud argument.
Yeah.
Or maybe the windows were open. Anyway, Sarah is bemused at this because there's not even the mention of a grandson in the file whatsoever.
Yeah, and also Cheryl tells them that it wasn't unusual for them to fight. Linda thought that he was a deadbeat and he was only interested in her inheritance. That's old school Columbo motive.
Very much.
So they report this incredible breakthrough back to Olympia, as well as the news that Linda's estate was worth 8 figures, and this is obviously, as I say, a motive.
Tens of millions of dollars. Roger is also taller than Jean and fits the description of the original eyewitness.
The cops never checked if he had an alibi. Now, this sounds like either some of the sloppiest police work ever or corruption. Has the millionaire Roger or someone paid them off not to look into him? That's what I was thinking.
Well, Sarah made the point in the previous scene, though, that it was one of those cases where the police get fixated on someone they think did it and they don't investigate thoroughly all the alternatives. I don't know.
Sarah's know. Where's she getting this from?
Well, that's just her opinion.
That's not good enough.
Well,
she doesn't know anything about it. I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure how much that does do. Corruption, certainly. But just saying, this is a person.
We've found who it is. We don't need to look at these other ones. We've got the guy.
Yeah, it just seems too obvious that.
Why would we keep investigating? We've got the killer here.
It seems like unless it was corruption, someone telling you about an argument from someone who's due to inherit many millions might well be something you would consider and look at.
Maybe now.
No, at any point, unless you're just deliberately being corrupt, I can't see the cops going, nah, probably not.
Anyway, on Olympia's instructions, they take Madeline with them to Roger's home and speak with him as he offers them afternoon tea.
She does her thing. After being complimentary about the fine pieces that adorn his home, she uses her southern charm in order to get him to take a bite from a sandwich, which is what Sarah and Billy were obviously waiting for.
Yeah, they then provoke him by talking about antique spoons and caviar and then the argument that Cheryl heard and his sizable inheritance.
He obviously realises he's being accused of this murder and orders them all out. They happily oblige, but only after discreetly pocketing the half-eaten sandwich.
And noting that his parting words about organising her 70th birthday party and it being the one thing that's kept him going all these years, it seems a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah. The sandwich is then presented to Olympia as evidence that they can use to match saliva found at the scene. Is this admissible?
Well, it's not a murder trial, so...
It would be. Yeah, it's not now. Yeah, I don't know. Can you go stealing things from people's homes and use that in court?
No, but all they're trying to do here is persuade somebody that it wasn't Jean.
Okay.
It's not. They're not trying to prove Roger did it.
Yeah, sure. But because you're messing around doing this, that could jeopardise future justice, because that piece of evidence might not therefore be admissible down the line, and therefore a guilty party might get away with that.
Potentially. Madeline gets the credit for the plan to obtain the bitten sandwich, but she's not with them because she's away dealing with Barry Manilow, apparently.
Yeah, they turn around and watch her on the phone dealing with Belvin's dog. And this time, however, she is on the phone as herself and puts the next part of her horrendous plan into action by pretending that she innocently gave away Barry Manilow to her friend Adam.
This doesn't make any sense. Why would Mrs. Belvin fall for this?
She shouldn't.
Probably because she's in shock because of the traumatic treatment that
because
she's
she knows it's, or she thinks that someone is trying to kidnap the dog.
Yeah, but why would you think Madeline would
Why would you think
allow
Madeline,
this to happen?
Well, because what's the alternative? That Madeline is involved.
Yeah, I suppose it's, you go for the simplest. Yeah, so the story that Madeline gives Belvin is that Belvin's friend Adam showed up for the dog and Alfie let him take him, and Madeline was initially upset to hear about this, but then assuaged when she heard that he knew all about the eye drops and everything. She's worried that she's done something wrong, but Belvin reassures her that everything is okay and hangs up.
Yes, and in a panic, she then calls the ransomer's number, which is picked up this time by Edwin with the voice modulator on, who demands that she talk. And in her distressed state, she is willing to do so, but only after she gets proof that Barry is still okay.
Hello. Come here.
Oh my God, that's his cadence.
He's fine and he's happy.
And you'll have him back just as soon as you tell me why my timeline is wrong.
There was a fire drill in the building that day. That's when the document went missing.
A fire drill?
Yes, at 11:30. And during the fire drill, the doors get unlocked, which means no key card required.
How do you know the documents from Wellbrexa weren't taken before?
Because I was in charge of scanning the discovery back then. That's when the alarm went off. When I came back, one of the folders was suddenly empty.
How did you narrow it down to 3 suspects?
No. You said if I told you the timeline, I'd get Barry back.
This is the last question.
So what did she say?
That of the team of people working on the Wellbrexa case, Julian, Olympia, and Senior were the only ones who didn't sign in to the fire drill. Now we know Senior was in Australia. So now we're back to 50-50. It's either Olympia or Julian.
We need to figure out where they were. And I know where to look first.
Okay.
Outrageous. I don't even know what else to say. It's just accumulating.
Yeah. Later that night, as Edwin tells the off-screen Alfie that they can't keep Manilow, Madeline is looking through Olympia's billables because obviously she's got her.
Well, this doesn't make sense. Yes,
copy laptop.
They stole her laptop.
Oh, they not copy it.
No, they stole the laptop at the start of the season, and it's still got access to everything.
Yeah, they would reset all the passwords and stuff like that. Yeah.
Forced logout from other devices and stuff like that. It's like,
yeah. Anyway, she noticed that she charged a client from $9.50 to $12.45 for a court appearance on the date in question, but Madeline is still not certain this clears her as being involved, as billables can be faked, and they need proof that she was actually in the court, which they will get the next day.
Edwin gets frustrated when Alfie reports that the dog has peed all over the other room, but is assured by Madeline that he can return the dog tomorrow.
See, this is interesting to me. Now, I am not, you're a sort of pet person. I'm not. I don't have dogs, cats, not interested in them. But even from my point of view, not a dog lover, she remarks it's just an animal and will be returned shortly. So I suppose the question is, do you think she is so obsessed that she would do something to harm the animal?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I think she's trying to tell him not to get too stressed about the dog peeing because dogs pee.
But see, I don't get it. I don't think, I would say that it's just a dog, just an animal. I don't think a pet lover would ever say that.
She's never had pets, or they don't have pets. At the moment, she lied about having the dog, remember, to Belvin. So maybe she doesn't care about animals.
Yeah.
But I don't think that means she would harm it.
No, it just seemed quite cold. Okay, it's just an animal. It's going to return tomorrow. It's you know what they say about it's a serial killer starting off torturing animals.
Well, I don't know. If she did harm the animal, it wouldn't be the worst thing she's done. No. She would not get as much time for that as she should for what she has done. Yeah.
Where are we next?
At the ADA's office, Andrew Park, who we've seen previously, says that the last time a woman showed up unannounced in his office so often, he had to get a restraining order as Olympia comes in to speak to him.
He confirms that he received her case file but has not read it. He is not persuaded or convinced by Isabel's allegation of bullying, and so Olympia, that's what I mentioned earlier on, she sort of resorts to playing the minority card about not being heard and how he would not have experienced that. And again, it seems like a last resort for her. It's like she doesn't have anything else here, so she's got to try to play with his emotions.
She tells him that it would have happened to his mother. She must have experienced it. And then later on, she plays on, like at the end of this conversation, the times that he has stood up against injustice when he was fighting for different causes. Yeah,
I mean, it's sort of fine, but it seems to me that Olympia, being the smart, intelligent, and professional lawyer that she is, would prefer to be using the facts rather than... It's emotional bullying.
There's no implication in anything that Isabel said that we've heard that the reason she wasn't listened to is because she was a woman or a minority. It's because they didn't agree with her.
Yes.
And didn't agree with her interpretation of the evidence.
Because you'd have to assume that on that jury, half of them were probably women, if it's just a random selection, and some of them may well be minorities themselves.
Yep.
So they all disagreed but weren't interested in it.
This is the only time in the episode it really gets referenced.
Yeah. We didn't say, the other 11 juries were all white middle-aged men.
No.
So, yeah.
They're just the foreman.
Yeah.
Anyway, Olympia challenges Park to do the right thing. And he's making excuses about how his seniors were involved in this case and it would cost him his job if he dug into it too far.
Yeah, and effectively ends the conversation. But as she gets up, she asks him who he wants to be in life. This is one of the moments where you get to, you put your neck in the line and make the right decisions, and then reveals what she knows about his past.
Yeah, this is creepy.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's public knowledge.
She's just trying to manipulate him. He should be ignoring this.
Yeah, she talks about some of the civil rights work he'd done when at college, etc. Again, she's playing him here. And yeah, he should say, I'm not getting involved in this. I'll make a decision based on...
Well, what she's basically saying is, I've identified a weakness of yours and here I am trying to take advantage of it.
Yeah. Park looks like he's going to change his mind because of this and admits that he wished he could, but again apologises and declines.
So, back in Julian's office, we see his team scrabbling around looking for a document.
It's a hive of activity. Olympia enters and, sensing that she needs to speak, he asks them to give them 15 minutes.
He then asks her whether she needs a hug.
Yeah, it's clear that she is on the edge. She's very upset. And again, I like this. Julian, all they're going through in terms of their personal, their breakup, their rivalry in the partner race, he is still at heart, I think, a decent person.
Yeah. And we've seen this, it's almost like this is a cyclical thing. So we saw the relationship strengthen at the start of the season to the point where they almost got back together, and then it got undermined by the revelations. And now it's just kind of building back up to where it was at that point. Not back together, but the point where they had a respectful relationship.
And so I think she sort of breaks down a little bit and cries, and they do indeed hug. Meanwhile, in the U3 office, Madeline...
Oh, this is sad.
She receives a call from Jean, and she grimaces as she lets him know that things aren't looking good.
Well, that's not why she's grimacing. She's grimacing because she realises that he is starting to hope that this might go well. He's calling for an update, which he wouldn't have done if he wasn't thinking it might work out.
He pretends to accept this inevitable news.
He seems quite sad.
And they hang up.
In the conference room, Isabel now explains to Madeline as they wait for Olympia.
It's a very awkward atmosphere. The two of them are sitting together, and obviously there has been this tension before.
And this is where she explains how she was marginalised and bullied and wasn't listened to, and Madeline immediately gets it. This bugs me every time it happens.
Yeah.
She's got a firm opinion. She then gets told some information and changes her mind on the spot 180 degrees, and it's like, I now fully agree with you. Who would believe her?
I know. But also interestingly here as well, as she's defending her actions, Isabel says, I'm not even sure I was right. It's just this one thing niggled, and that's correct. Yeah. That's fine. You're allowed to have that. You're rolling you put your voice, you put your opinion across.
And if you feel that strongly, you don't change your vote.
Yeah. It was heard that the 11 other jurors dismissed it, didn't think it was enough.
Yep.
So you've not... Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the way this episode presents it is that any reasonable person would have seen he wasn't guilty. So these other 11 folk must be corrupt in some way.
Yeah. And what Isabel says, they watch a young mailroom girl wander past with her trolley.
Says, imagine her going up against the top guy here.
And it's understandable. Yeah, you don't have the power. But again, it's not like for like situation. No. You were in
you had an equal vote.
In a very controlled environment. Yeah.
Down in the document store, Madeline checks in on Belvin, who now has Barry Manilow restored to her care.
So when did that happen?
Well, exactly. This is a bit awkward. How the heck did they do the handover with the whole Adam thing?
Yeah, with the dog. We needed a call there to say, pick the dog up at, the bush, the bench or whatever it is at Central Park, and then her going to... It's a weird scene to miss out.
Yeah. Her dental procedure was apparently way less invasive than she expected, and everything is okay.
And she's now in great spirits. At the same time, Park strides into Olympia's office and tells her she got to him.
You get the feeling that he's being set up as a main character for next season, I think.
Oh, for sure. I think that you often see that in these type of legal shows where the law firm is up against either working with or against. There's a good bit of rivalry between the DA and what have you. So yeah, I quite like Park. Yeah, it'd be good to see him in season 2. Yeah, so he's going to risk his job and has sent the spoon for saliva testing.
And the results show that Roger is innocent.
It didn't match, yeah. But they have found something way better for her case.
Which he now lays out in court. And one thing that this show does well is not repeat itself.
What do we find out?
The saliva matched John Quinmar Jr.
Who's that?
3-time convicted felon who's in the federal database and died, conveniently, 6 years earlier in prison. His MO was to case homes as a catering waiter, then return to burglarise them.
And the night that Linda died, he had been catering for her 70th party.
That Roger organised, yes. So the DA's office is now working to have Jean released because they assume that Quinmar Jr. was the real killer.
And at this point, now vindicated Isabel turns to Dale.
Not willing to take the victory with dignity.
No, and Dale tells him he should have believed her.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
This is absurd. It's like, I was right, so therefore you should have believed. That's not how it works.
So what I'm now going to do is pass on that guilt to Dale, who for the rest of his life...
Yeah, he has to live with putting an innocent man in prison for 20 years.
Yeah. Madeline then gets...
He doesn't look like the kind of guy who's going to...
He probably doesn't care. Yeah. Can I get out of here now?
I've got a parting to tend to.
I was about to sue you as well. Madeline then gets a text from Edwin claiming good news and to call him before the judge awards a summary judgment in Isabel's favour and is hugged by Olympia, who directs a satisfied wink at a now beaming Madeline.
Out in the corridor, Edwin confirms that Olympia was in court. There's transcripts of the hearing and she could not have been the one responsible for taking the document. This leaves Madeline overjoyed.
Yes, and at the same time, a wary Isabel is approached by Jean. But all he wants to do is give her a hug and thank her. And there's tears everywhere.
I think the implication is he's been released.
Yeah.
He's been brought to court and been released. Whether it's
temporary
conviction or bail.
Yeah. And I think from what we've seen here, he will be, the evidence will be enough to make an unsecure verdict.
Oh yeah, they might vacate it, I don't know. Watching this, Park says to Olympia that it was worth losing his job over, but she doesn't think that's going to happen.
No, and we cut to them standing side by side in front of the press as she sings his praises and boasts about the privilege she had in working with such a caring DA's office.
Yes, she says that He should be praised for righting a wrong, although I suspect there's probably still thousands of folk online who think Jean did it. And they've got their own forums and their discussion threads saying he's clearly guilty.
There'll be a TikTok investigation.
There's definitely going to be a podcast about it as well.
However, the threesome aren't as positive about this statement as they watch the CBS recording together from their office. Sarah is convinced that this was effectively a resignation speech, but surprised when she enters, Olympia that is, and tells them that actually it was a means of getting in on the DA's good side and also making it impossible for her and her new high profile to not be made partner.
The three of them are delighted that she's staying, and Madeline gives her an unexpectedly huge hug and tells her that she's incredible. Mm-hmm. So it's a happy ending. Everyone's happy.
Well, yes, what can possibly...
And that's the end of the episode.
Almost. Madeline continues to be delighted as she talks with Edwin on the bus and hangs up just as she gets off to go around the corner where things take a dramatic turn.
Heading home?
Olympia? My goodness, you could give an old lady a heart attack. Did you need me to go back to work? Is it the Johnson case?
You are the Johnson case.
That pen is a recording device.
Julian, partner race, the divorce. I just want honesty.
Done. So, no more looking back?
Did you spy on me? Because there was this pen in my office, a recording device.
Olympia, I swear, on our children, that was not me.
Then who put it there? Julian.
And I had to bring that fettuccine Alfredo all the way to your apartment in Queens.
Hey, Maddie. Want some ice cream?
Why would I want ice cream?
Ron, can I ask you a quick question? Could I see the CCTV footage from outside the courthouse? But in return, there is something I need from you. Come here. I need you to trace this car's license plate. So, who the hell are you? Madeline Matlock?
Dun dun dun.
Oh, things are going to get interesting.
I suspect we'll be getting into all this next time.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that we're not going to have this swept out in like half a scene at the start of next week's episode.
I don't think so.
Presumably Olympia's going to go straight to the police.
She should do.
I've noted here that there's zero doubt at this point that Madeline is the villain of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be good. I think if we see her, and here's the thing, I'm not being ageist. Kathy Bates herself isn't, she's not a young actor, so maybe she would be happy to step aside and be the producer and allow the other team to take it forward, and she maybe has a guest role from in prison, every other week.
It's called Matlock though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I don't think that's how it's going to go, but you never know.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main case in this episode was Olympia's attempt to exonerate Jean Molina, a doorman at an apartment building who was convicted of murder over 20 years earlier by way of a legal case by a juror on the original trial against the foreman for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Without any legal justification, the judge agrees to decide the case based on whether Jean was guilty in the first place. And when Olympia convinces the ADA to look into DNA evidence, it transpires a known felon was to blame. So the case is determined in favour of the juror Isabel, and proceedings commence to vacate Jean's conviction.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Any trivia?
Not really, just the usual production info. 3rd of April 2025 was the original air date. And again, we had Kat Coiro in the director's seat.
Our friend Kat.
Indeed. 2 writers, 2 credited teleplays. That's a different credit. We've not had a teleplay to this point. I'm not sure why they changed that.
Maybe to do rewrites or something?
Possibly. So we've had Jeffrey Leiber before. This is his 3rd of 3 so far, as we've noted before. Maybe that will increase. And a newcomer, Tommy Cook, You may have watched his work in Film Theory, Wisecrack, or Charmed. Now, I've mentioned Charmed a few times, and I didn't realise, and maybe it was only this time, it's a reboot of the original Charmed show. So
I think there's a connection to the original Charmed. Was it not Jenny Snyder-Urban was involved with Charmed, or one of the other people? Yeah.
But anyway, in this case, Tommy Cook was a reboot, not the original run. He was on the production staff of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno and Community, and has been the script coordinator on Midnight Texas, the cast this week. So Amina was played by Azzy Tesfaye. She has appeared in Jane the Virgin, Supergirl, Bel Air, A Million Little Things, Franklin and Bash, Melrose Place, and Wicked Wicked Games.
Hard to believe that someone who was in Jane the Virgin has shown up on this show.
Yeah. We find that often, don't we, that certain shows have got a connection.
Yes, we saw that a lot in Quantum Leap.
And Poker Face also.
Yeah.
Isabel was played by Blanca Araceli. She was born on the 22nd of September 1964 in Mexico, and you may have seen her in Dr. Odyssey, Monster, SWAT, The Lincoln Lawyer, American Horror Story, Veep, Shameless, or perhaps The Bridge. And finally, Mean Gene, maybe not so Mean Gene, played by Del Zamora. He's been in a lot of things over a number of years, a character actor. I would have seen him, and probably yourself, in RoboCop, maybe even Repo Man, Sneaky Pete, Longmire, The Red Road, True Blood, Medium, X-Files, Alias, NYPD Blue, In Living Colour, The Fabulous Baker Boys alongside Senior, Miami Vice, Hill Street Blues, and he's also been in Airwolf.
Belisario production.
For sure.
Tie into our Quantum Leap podcast. Any more for any more?
Yeah, that's me.
Next week, Olympia stretches credulity by once again finding herself at odds with Jacobson Moore, taking on a new divorce case in I Was That Too.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.